Hello, Gauze here, and this is Compion, my channel documenting my journey towards a more fulfilling life through competence and connection. My current project is on mindful creative productivity, where I'm giving myself weekly themes or topics to pay attention to as I go about the goals in my life. I produce a piece of poetry from my insights and experiences that week and share both my poems and reflections. And this week's theme has been on temperature. I've always been a person whose body runs quite warm, temperature wise. Even in cold conditions, I wear fairly minimal clothing, otherwise, I just end up sweating. And I thought I'd pay attention to what role temperature plays in my day to day routine. When it feels like a help, when it feels like a hindrance, when I feel most comfortable or uncomfortable, and also paying attention to when that's the case for other people as well. And that has resulted in a poem called Discovery. Enjoy. My skin runs hot, a furnace untamed, sweat on my palms, my body ashamed. The air feels thick, I drown where I stand. Heat clings tight like a reprimand. Why can't I cool, stay steady, stay still? Why must I burn against my own will? Flames in my chest can sharpen my mind, a fever of focus, not lagging behind. Sweat is a signal, a force to obey, a call to control, not hide it away. This fire is mine, I learn, I steer. Not something to smother, but something to clear. Heat is a question, a voice in my core. How much can I take? How far? How more? Tension has warmth, decisions have weight. Every new choice ignites or abates, and sometimes the burn is needed to be a breaking, a forging, a realigned me. I now know by bearing this heat, I am capable of any feat, and I won't freeze in the cold, won't break, bend, or fold. Welcome back, and thank you for listening to the poem. Before we get into the reflection section, if you're liking the video so far, please do leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. So, onto the reflection section. This theme was interesting to explore from the perspective of when I talked about my body runs quite warm a lot of the time, and normally I'd have to wear few clothes, otherwise I ended up just sweating. I remember how much of a self-conscious point that was for me when I was a lot younger. I really hated the fact that I just sweated as soon as I did any activity, or if it was just slightly warm that day, I just walked to school and I'd just be a ball of sweat by the time that I arrived, and it just wasn't really pleasant. So it kind of still poured on something I suppose I'm sometimes conscious of, is that, like, how warm I run at times and whether I'm going to sweat in my current clothing or not. That's still a big consideration for me when I go about my day-to-day activities. It's not like uncontrollable, but it's still just something that I would prefer to not be sweating if I don't have to be. Forever through the week, and going through my gym sessions or being warm, doing anything else really, just walking around, walking into rooms that are a bit warm once you've just been wrapped up for winter. A part of me was recognizing the ways in which I've learned to live with it. Seeing it as a sign of like bodily focus when it comes to the gym, or in rooms where I feel like I'm starting to get a bit warm and hot, as an indicator to try and get my body under control. Maybe it's not actually me just running too warm. Maybe it's me being a bit anxious or confused and just apprehensive in general. So it could be those kind of emotions or feelings that are wrapped up inside of me, and that's what my body is reacting to, more so than the temperature as well. So kind of making some considerations for the other alternative factors that could also be playing into the mix. And I think the further through the week that I went, paying attention to situations where other people felt comfortable or uncomfortable, maybe they were feeling a bit too hot, a bit too cold, it started to feel like the temperature was also just like a reference point for finding out more about myself. Almost, if you imagine situations and questions and conversations as having a particular temperature. A temperature could be quite warm or quite cold, and depending on whatever temperature you normally sit at, those situations, conversations, and their associated temperature could really test the limits of what you can tolerate, because there could be a big, temperature difference there, shall we say. And so I ended up concluding that in some instances, heat or cold is really just relative to whatever you yourself are made of. And sometimes that big temperature difference is needed to, let's say it's too hot for you and you get burned, or you feel like part of you is melting. Sometimes that burning or melting, or that uncomfortable sensation is sometimes needed to get things to move, or like realignments to take place where you're like, okay, this is a situation or a set of circumstances, or this is a personal conversation that I shouldn't be around. And I suppose for me, my big takeaway was, or I guess the main phrase of this was just learning to live with the heat. You know, understanding what I'm made of, what situations I thrive in, and what situations I don't thrive in too. And that's all from me. Please leave comments below if anything's resonated with you or if there are any other themes that you'd like to see. Also, please do share this with others if you've enjoyed the video or feel they could do with hearing whatever I have to say. Next week's theme will be on rules. See you then.